Please go ahead, sir.
Okay, great. Uh, Dear Excellency, thank you very, very much for joining us this evening, Mr. Goenka, my friend Devender, ASSOCHAM members, friends from industry, stakeholders in the India-US Partnership Initiative. I hope all of you are doing very well. Just before we started this webinar, Excellency Sandhu, Devender, and Mr. Goenka, myself are having a quick chat, and we were checking up. So things look to be not so bad, but not so good as well. Numbers are going up. We need to be very, very careful. Health is at stake. I think everybody needs to take care of that. Equally, the economy has to be taken care of. Jobs have to be taken care of. Businesses have to be taken care of. I think this pandemic has checked the grit and resilience of almost everybody in the last 4 months. We are here. We survived this, and I'm sure we will go back into the thriving mode. I don't want to be sitting out of a home in a chair. I want to be back in the mountains. I want to ride my bike. I want to do everything that I was doing. I'm sure not happening tomorrow, not happening next month, maybe not in the next 6 months, but yes, we will definitely get there. And with that hope and with a prayer to the Almighty, I think I will start. Your Excellency, please accept our wholehearted thanks for accepting to participate this evening. ASSOCHAM and its members are indebted to you for taking this time out. We are also wanting to put on record for spearheading this evacuation of so many Indians, and I'm sure so many more are there. You're just giving us a number, so it's a mammoth task. I never imagined that these are so many numbers that one is trying to talk about. Is what you led with your team, and congratulations to you and your team. I think you've done a fantastic balance between business continuity and evacuation, and therefore it is a fine balance and needs to be acknowledged. Thank you so much for this, sir. At ASSOCHAM, sir, we have in India close to 4.5 lakh members, which is global and local members, and we have been at it as well. Business continuity has been the most important thing that one is trying to talk about as we were going along, and we have discussed with members their issues, try to find solutions, try to reason with the government and the industry and find solutions as we went along, sir. I think as we are going, sir, the India-US relationship needs to be looked at a new lens with the shifting because of this pandemic and the global geopolitical scenario. The trade and the business environment is making a shift. So businesses and governments all need to kind of, diversify, indigenize, innovate so that they can resume their trade so as to, because ultimately it is the trade and business which is going to be essential and take us forward. I think open and operate are two extremely important things. While we are opening and shutting down, opening and operation is another challenge that one is facing about. I think these challenges will give us a huge amount of opportunity that is opening in front of us, and coupled with the clarion call of the Honorable Prime Minister on Atmanirbhar Bharat, which also opens a lot of opportunity for India in its manufacturing space. And therefore, it becomes extremely important that India and US marry their strengths and complementarities and try and do business as we go along. So I think self-reliant India, the Atmanirbhar Bharat, is not about protectionism. It is about the strength. It is about the scale that Indian manufacturing can achieve as we go along, build capabilities, build the skills within the people of India. It's about globalization. A little bit of deglobalization, but again, reglobalization, which means all this is going to happen in the same breath. It is going to happen simultaneous. I think India and US have done about $50 billion of investments across each other, and therefore, there's been a lot of jobs that we have created for each other. We've been shoulder to shoulder with each other, trying to provide services to the government, to the people, and both countries, and put together provide services to the rest of the world as well, if I may say so. And therefore, what really has happened is that we have brought that people-to-people connect, whether it is an Indian company in the US or the US company in India. And I think that's very, very important. Government of India has taken extreme steps in terms of making changes so that manufacturing is possible within the ecosystem of India, whether it is reforms, whether it is labor reforms, or making rules in FDI easy and about. And I think not only the US, the globe can benefit from it, but typically US stands to gain a lot. UNCTAD has said that Indian economy is very resilient as far as Southeast Asian economies are concerned. Of course, we are. We are a very large economy. We are a very large population. We are a very large consuming market. And we are truly the consuming economy and less of an export economy. And therefore, our chances of attracting FDI is definitely higher compared to many, many more that one is talking about. This is a black swan event, sir. It has kind of, put everybody off their feet. Nobody had ever planned for something like this at this scale. Just to give you small data points, which is something which I thought which will be of very relevant over here. 14% of the agri economy takes care of the 49% of the agri jobs. With the timely intervention in the rural areas, I think our economy at the rural side is robust. And I'm not talking about a few states. I think across India, the rural economy seems to be good. Rabi crop, Kharif crop. I just was looking at numbers of Mahindra and Mahindra. Tractor and farm mechanization is up. Auto sales seem to be pointing towards on the positive side. So therefore, what one is trying to say here is the rural economy seems to be okay. 60% of the services economy is damaged, not beyond repair. We were servicing the world with a 98% efficiency from all IT companies. As I speak to you, sir, I'm sitting in Bangalore right now, and the digital India dream of the Honorable Prime Minister is making it possible. Imagine that we had not done the digital India 5 years back. I don't know how work would have happened in India. I just can't even dream about it. 25% of the manufacturing GDP is where we are hit, and 85% of that is MSME. And that's where the larger chunk is, and government is working around it. How do we upskill? How do we ensure import substitution is done? And therefore, these people are able to find newer businesses as we go along. India is a consumption economy, sir. Our per capita is only $2,000 per person, 70% of which is essential buying. Whereas globally, you will find per capita of 50,000 and plus, which is discretionary in nature. And therefore, the case that I'm trying to build over here is, sir, our demand is not very far away. If it is essentials, it comes back. You can postpone it for some time, but it cannot be postponed indefinitely. So therefore, I'm very hopeful of seeing demand come back. So $330 billion of FDI into India and manufacturing, happening. 25% of manufacturing GDP of this country, happening. Now, we need to do a lot before we can do that. But yes, happening. The diaspora of India has supported us across, and therefore they are the very, very important ones. And before I kind of conclude and hand it over to Devinder, I think there are impeding trade deals which are to happen, and one just wanted to make a flying pass-by comment on it. And I think the complete and true potential, and especially with this given scenario, a new review and new lens with which one needs to look at it is essential. I think alignment and commitment from the leadership seems to be in our way. Thank you so much, sir, once again for joining us on this fireside chat at ASSOCHAM. We are very, very delighted to have you with us. We have with us our friend Devinder, who is an advisor from our knowledge partner, Primus Partners. And however, you know how celebrated the man is with his resumes. I obviously can't read the whole thing. He's got about 30 years plus experience in public sector governance and public policy, and the list is so much that I stop here. And he has leadership positions at Prime Minister's office, the PMO. He has done Government of India positions, the bank, World Bank positions, Indian Railways, KPMG, and again, this goes on. So I am delighted to present to you, ladies and gentlemen, Devinder, who will moderate this session. And once again, thank you so much, Excellency, for joining us.
Thank you, Deepak. That's a remarkable start to the proceedings. Excellency, it's my privilege to moderate this session. We all look forward to hearing. Deepak has said so much about me, Excellency, and we have worked together for a number of years. It's always been a pleasure. Let me just say one sentence. Excellency, there couldn't have been a better Indian than you to represent us here, and we are proud of that. On the panel with me here is one of our foremost industrialists, Mr. V.K. Goenka, and presently I will move to him. And I mean, across the space, the products, the services, the way he has sort of helped the Indian industry, and a footprint in the US is remarkable. And he will bring that experience on board as he has a conversation with you. But let me just start with you and request you, right from the times of Galbraith, I mean, we've had this people-to-people fascination between India and America. And that finally, over decades, has fructified into what is clearly a strategic relationship. Over the last 20 years, every government, every prime minister, every president has met in a manner that has shown that relationship to the rest of the world. So, I mean, just sort of what Deepak hinted at, I mean, we've all been waiting for this mega trade deal that both the principals have, whenever they've met, they've talked of that. How do you see this moving forward? I mean, there's a troubled time, but finally, 5-6 months, whatever later it'll end. How do you see our trade deal moving forward?
Chairman Goenka ji, Secretary General Deepak Sood, and my good friend Devinder. It's a great pleasure to be here today. Please accept my greetings on ASSOCHAM completing 100 years of its establishment. The industry representatives are important stakeholders in strong India-US partnership. I compliment ASSOCHAM for organizing this event and to interact with all of you. As two vibrant democracies having open and multicultural societies, India and US are natural partners. Our relationship has enjoyed strong bipartisan support in the United States, which is an affirmation of our shared values, of our common commitment to democracy and pluralism. Elevated to comprehensive global strategic partnership, our bilateral cooperation is broad-based and multi-sectoral. There is a growing engagement in the sectors such as defense, security, energy, trade and investment, education, science and technology, cybersecurity, space technology and applications, clean energy, environment, agriculture, and health. Defense has emerged as an important pillar of our partnership. India was designated as major defense partner by the US in 2016. This is encouraging greater cooperation in co-production and co-development of defense technologies. Our defense trade has touched $21 billion. Besides defense, our strategic energy partnership is strengthening. US has become an important source of oil and gas for India. In the last 4 years, our total energy trade has soared to around $20 billion. Mutual investment in energy sector has also seen an upswing. Trade and investment is an important pillar of India-US relationship. Our bilateral trade has witnessed double-digit growth in the last 3 years and has become more balanced. In the last 4 to 5 years, just 4 sectors, energy, civil aircrafts, defense, and higher education, have contributed about $70 billion to our economic relations. Our bilateral trade is growing at 10% on a year-to-year basis and has touched $150 billion in 2019. While this growth is impressive, the real potential for our bilateral trade is yet to be reached. While trade continues to drive the commercial relationship forward, the remarkable business linkages between the two countries will continue to advance on the back of reforms enacted by Government of India. India has maintained a strong business-friendly environment that has led to increased movement of foreign companies, including from the US, into India. At the same time, US has traditionally been an important investment destination for Indian companies. The favorable business environment offered by various states in the United States, as well as policies attracting Indian skilled professionals, have ensured the steady flow of Indian FDI into the US. With an investment of close to $23 billion, Indian companies have a strong presence in the US in diverse sectors like IT, pharma, manufacturing, automotive, energy, defense, etc. The pandemic fast-tracked adoption of technology. Digital connectivity is effectively being used for teleworking, teleeducation, and telemedicine. Innovation, a key driver in pandemic response, will be important for economic recovery as well. Our tech companies are continuing to innovate in information supply, new digital platforms, and tools of learning, etc. Digital and high-tech could emerge as an important area for future collaboration with the US. Post-COVID, we are going to see a world with a radically different supply chains as the countries look for reliable and risk-free partnerships. The current pandemic witnessed India as a reliable partner in global supply. Post-COVID, as the US will look for diversification of manufacturing and supply chains, India could emerge as an important partner. However, to become a nerve center of multinational supply chains, we need to create a more attractive ecosystem by pushing reforms across sectors. India has an advantage of young and skilled workforce. In the future, ensuring equitable, affordable, and timely access to health products and technologies will be a priority for all countries. India has inherent strengths in pharmaceutical sector. India is the largest supplier of generic medicines globally, occupying 20% share in global supply by volume, and also supplies 62% of global demand for vaccines. The cost of manufacturing medicines in India is approximately 33% lower than that of the US. With its inherent strengths, India can become a hub for end-to-end drug discovery. At the same time, India is emerging as a key market for medical devices and diagnostics. Our long-standing and robust partnership with the United States in the area of health and scientific research has further deepened during the time of the pandemic. There are at least 3 ongoing collaborations of Indian and US companies and institutions to co-develop and produce a COVID-19 vaccine. Gilead has entered into licensing agreements with 7 Indian companies, including Cipla, Jubilant, Dr. Reddy's, amongst others, to manufacture remdesivir and supply it to more than 127 countries. Cooperation in healthcare, in pharma, in basic research, in vaccines, diagnostics, devices, telemedicine, hospital administration, healthcare supplies, healthcare expertise is a major opportunity for India. It carries great potential for collaboration with the United States. Clean energy is another core priority for the government, where we have set an ambitious agenda. While our energy trade has grown in the last few years to touch $8 billion in 2019, there is a great potential in clean energy cooperation between our countries. In 2019-2020, 22% of India's energy generation was from renewable resources. The clean energy industry in the US is expected to continue to grow rapidly in coming years. There is a tremendous opportunity for collaboration in the development of smart power grids and clean energy storage systems. US Development Finance Corporation has made an announcement of $600 million financing facility for renewable energy projects in India. DFC has also decided to establish a permanent presence in India this year. A few days back, DFC approved $350 million in sustainable financing for projects in India's financial services sector, health infrastructure, renewable energy, and food security space. In agriculture sector, both India and US remain engaged to get access to respective agricultural products in each other's markets. Besides, the two sides could find new ways to cooperate on technology in agricultural production. Some of the other sectors where we could look at collaborations with the US include education services, environment, goods, electronics, power generation and distribution equipment, coal, seafood, auto and auto components, etc. It is important that India puts in every effort to convert the current crisis into an opportunity by building an economy that is resilient, diversified, and attractive destination for global manufacturing and global services. The two governments remain engaged on trade-related matters through various institutional mechanisms like the Trade Policy Forum, Commercial Dialogue during the Donald Trump administration. The private sectors of both countries provide their valuable inputs to the commercial dialogue through the CEO Forum. India-US trade and economic partnership is robust and has a promising future. There is tremendous interest among businesses from both sides, and immense potential remains untapped. We need to collectively, government and the industry together, need to work towards unlocking this potential. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Sandhu. I think what you've laid out before us is a fabulous sort of portfolio of both technologies, products, sectors where all that potential is there. Now, let me ask Mr. Goenka, one of our foremost industrialists with a wide range of products from textiles to steel and businesses in India as well as businesses in the US. Mr. Goenka, how do you see this relationship going forward? And what are the markers that you would like to see in some kind of a trade deal and understanding as we go forward?
So good morning, good evening, friends. First of all, I just want to thank you again, Ambassador Sandhuji, for joining us today. Sir, you have covered up very well the opening remark. I mean, and just to, in my view, just what question asked by Devender, I would like to say that we all know that United States is world largest consumer-based economy with a very high per capita income. The stimulus announced by the government of US recently, which is one of its kind, is likely to have very positive impact. We already started seeing the impact in the market and the liquidity what is there in the not only in the US market, but because of that in the global market as well. This has already started the much needed demand in the US economy. This in turn provides an opportunity for the Indian industry to respond in the demand, the post COVID era. If I talk about our own industry, we are in textile, we are in value added in steel items. We saw in demand in April was totally down, totally slumped. And however, post stimulation in the month of May, when we saw that demand has come back very, very strongly. And we all know, and we have seen the highest sale ever done by, in the month of May, and the third week by Walmart, in single day. It was never seen. And we have also started seeing the good, export orders started back, particularly in the textile post stimulation. At the same time, we see the Indian side also. The Indian government has also come out with almost like $250 billion Atmanirbhar package. What Deepak has, highlighted many of the salient feature of that. I will not go into detail, but one thing is very, very clear: the economy where it matters, the agriculture or the rural economy or the semi-urban areas, we have already started seeing the demand coming back. So in India also we have started seeing it's little going to take time on a coming back to the other part of the industry. But in general, we see with this package is announced, the stimulation, things are looking much better. And I think in coming months, Indian economy will also start showing almost I would say 100% recovery in the coming month. But I think we will be back on in a good recovery path. Before the outbreak, when we see the global COVID-19, expert were projecting bilateral trade to go up to over $300 billion by 2025. You also covered in your opening remark, which was having a roughly annual growth of 12%. But I believe the COVID era, the way the whole stimulation package is there, I think there is a good chance and there's a good potential that this can be a different number altogether. The 10 or 12% can be a history. I think easily we can achieve, and if we can rightly play between the two countries, I think we can push it to at least 20% growth rate, which is having a huge and a positive, for the country like India. All in all, the relationship I think is quite strong between both the countries. Now with the strategic convergence, cooperation and support at various regional as well as international forum, specifically in the Asia Pacific region, what we are seeing right now. I think these are major factors which I feel can bring the two largest democracies very, very close and can be beneficial for both the countries.
Thank you, Mr. Goenka. Clearly, I mean, that's a very important sector, because if you look at, if you look at cotton and, how that's connected with agri in India, large farming population, and then, of course, the value add that Wells Fund, that is Mr. Goenka's firm, brings to the table. And, so that's a very good connect in terms of, Prime Minister's announcement of doubling farmers' incomes. But I want to share two data that came out today morning, one from the US and another from India. In US, the consumption has bounced back. So when a figure of around minus 30% in the total consumption, but households are now consuming more, and it's almost only down by 5% to pre-COVID levels. So that's a remarkable jump. And out of India, there's another figure which says that while there had been a large increase in unemployment, naturally because of the lockdown, etc., but the employment numbers are rising quickly, and we are now almost at pre-lockdown levels. I think if I see this, these figures are very encouraging. I think it also shows a lot of good thinking on part of both the governments here in the United States as well as in India, where historical incentive packages to move the economy forward are in play, and I think those advantages are there. But just to flag the issue of defense, because Ambassador Sandhu, you yourself are part of the conversations, on the 123 deal, where a lot of dual technology regimes, etc., were lifted. If you see in India, there's a lot of defense offset industries, that possibility is there. How do you see, what do we need to do to bring that investment from the US to India? Because clearly that's something that the Indian government is really looking forward to, with large, defense corridors across the states. How do you think that, and what can India do, and what can the US partners do to take this forward?
Or is that question to me, Devinder?
Yes, Ambassador Sandhu.
Sorry, I missed your first part. So absolutely, as you have said, that defense has emerged as an important pillar in our relationship. And as I mentioned to you, that today itself it stands at $21 billion, and we are considered as a major defense partner. Of course, this is encouraging, as I mentioned, greater cooperation in co-production, co-development, and also in 2018 we signed COMCASA, that is the first agreement, and then in 2019 we signed what is called Industrial Security Agreement. Thereafter, in 2019, two more have been signed in DTTI Industry Collaboration Forum Agreement and DTTI Standard Operating Procedure. Now, all these have given the boost, but I think this recent decision of our going to increase from 49 to 74% will be the one which will, which privately for a long time there has been a demand for that, and we expect that the US industry will be attracted to go in for investments into India. Of course, there is going to be a challenge at this time, Devinder, because in the post-COVID, certainly there is a bit of crunch. People are going to need to be encouraged to come and invest, and that's where this timely decision will be very, very helpful. So I'm hopeful that with this, the defense, which is one of the pillars already, but still it has a lot of potential ahead, will certainly get the boost, and we will have more investments coming in, both involving, of course, the US and also our private sector.
But that was a demand of the industry for a long time, and I think you rightly pointed out the fact that I think it's a very bold step forward by the government and Prime Minister Modi for taking this to 74%, and really hope to see advantages out of that for all the investment coming to India. Well, let me go back to Mr. Goenka, who runs more than a $3 billion conglomerate, but at the same time is also an investor into the US. So, Mr. Goenka, what would you like to see in the US? I mean, this is a great opportunity for us in terms of, flagging for His Excellency's attention. What would Indian investors into the US? What is their experience, and how do you think we need to advocate our investment into the US better?
That's a very good question, I think, and in today's scenario is very apt. As we know, I mean, as we all know that US is a matured economy, very well defined legal structure. When we see the market, when we see the consumption, if I can say 30% of the global consumption is in US. Is having 350 million people population, and the consumption, if it's the global consumption, is around 30% of the world market. That means the largest market size. When we see the energy after the gas price or the oil price, which is one of the cheapest in the world. When we talk about money, again, it's a lowest interest rate available at any other part of the world. Largest per capita income. I think this is absolutely ideal for any corporate to look at. They are looking for investment. The US is absolutely a place to invest. Just let me share my experience with the viewers here. That when we started home textile in early 90s, India was not known for textiles, particularly for the home textile. India was known for the textile, but not for the towels, for the sheets, and all those things. And those were the quotas time, and there was hardly any utilization of quotas. Indian quotas for US was not even utilized even 1%. And we looked up that opportunity, and we were the first company which started exporting the towels and the bed sheets from India. And within no time, within less than a decade, today we are the largest exporter of home textile in US. When we see as a country today, 50% of the market share in US is owned by Indians, and within that 50%, 20% is with Welspun. If I can put it in a layman language, every fifth towel sold in US is manufactured in India, manufactured by Welspun. So you can understand the potential what we are having there. On the other side, when I talk about steel, the value-added product, the pipes, India was also not known for the pipe exports. I mean, we were the first one in early 2000 who started exporting pipes from India. And then we saw the opportunity so big post shale gas and the shale oil coming up there. And we put up an investment of almost now $300 million, employing around 1,200 people in the state of Arkansas, where Excellency, you were supposed to visit, just before this COVID thing. I was given to understand by my people there that you are having some plan to visit and see our facilities. But unfortunately, I think that was not happened. But I think in the future you will see what we have done there.
WebEx interaction with Adana.
Yeah. So overall, I think our experience has been excellent, and I can say we always feel at home. I mean, US is one country you always feel at home. However, I mean, one thing which I want to raise here and to Governor here, to Ambassador here, is that the COVID benefit announced by US government is not available to the companies having more than 50% international ownership. Under the PPP, the stimulation package, that this is not available as we are investing from India and we own 100%. So when we are fully American company, we are paying American local taxes, we are employing local people. So why this discrimination? So this is the first time we have seen a challenge as an investor. Otherwise, investment in US has been quite rewarding to us, and I think many of our Indian friends. And I believe US has a huge potential for any investor looking at investment. This is one country which provides as I said earlier, the largest market, the cheapest energy, and the cheapest money. So I think we have all in all a very good experience, just except this recent challenge what we are facing.
So, Mr. Goenka, I just saw His Excellency make a note of what you just mentioned about non-availability of COVID benefit. So that's the way we have
I just
known,
want to interrupt. Sorry, Devendra. I just want to tell
please go
His
ahead.
Excellency that we $10 million under the package, but because of this ownership by foreign company, we are not able to take that advantage. So that was
So
a
as I
little,
was saying, this is
Can
how
I
we
give a
have known him.
small, short
Quick
response to
action.
that, Devinder?
Please go ahead.
As Devinder said, we have noted it down, and I have my commercial people also. We'll certainly take it up. In this webinar, of course, within the flexibility I have, I just want to mention to you, you are well aware that there's a very hotly contested election going on here. So I think as part and parcel of that, I don't have to mention more. So there is a different connotation which is going on. Hopefully things will settle.
thank you.
Excellency, you've been very kind to us in that thought. But we are assured that having straddled the course of more than one administration in your previous tenures here on the US soil, we have somebody who will make sure that that transition, whichever way it goes, is clearly in India's interest, and so we are confident of that. One other point which I think Mr. Goenka also mentioned, and we've been having conversations around that, is that we now have got a very large, as you said, set of OCIs and PIOs, as they used to be called earlier, resident in the United States. Large number of them in the services sectors, of course, doctors, lawyers, engineers, but then a large number of entrepreneurs, a large number of people who've set up, and the CEOs of the happening organizations in the world. We think that perhaps they could be the sort of locus of this US to India relationship in terms of investment flow. How is the embassy looking forward to tapping this large pool of not just talent, but even goodwill and capital that lies with OCIs and PIOs? And clearly there's a business case of going forward to a large, fast-growing, emerging economy like India. How do you see this?
See, Devinder, there's no doubt that the OCIs, especially, we must keep in mind that COVID and post-COVID, this has been an unprecedented situation and bit of a shock. So in this Indian Americans which you are mentioning, you open any TV channel today in the United States and you will find an Indian origin doctor speaking. So there is a great amount of respect which has deepened. Also, as I mentioned to you, the fact that India has come out as a reliable supply chain partner has also gone very well, not only with the administration, but the people at large. Because there are other narratives also which are going on in the United States at this time. So you made a very valid point, and this does not just contain till the Indian Americans, who of course are in prominent area jobs, not only in the medical research, medical science, doctors, but also in the IT industry. I don't have to give you example there, and IT is playing a very critical role, even on the health side. And in the future, it's going to continue to play a very important role. Of course, the dimensions may change. So one more aspect I want to bring to your attention here is that we have about 200,000 Indian students, and 3/4 of them are in STEM areas. So not just the Indian Americans, but these kids are also an important bridge. And that's the point which we have been also underlining here. when issues like OPT, etc. came up, that it is very important because these kids bring value to United States, they bring the competitive edge. And many of them, when they go back to India, they set up small innovative units, and those units again serve as bridge between United States and India. And there is a realization on that. I've been speaking to several senators and congressmen, they also acknowledge this part. So as you have correctly pointed out, not only Indian Americans, but these kids too, they are going to play a very significant role. They are going to continue to play in the post-COVID relationship between United States and India, which, as Mr. Goenka and my friend Director General has said, that this is going to get deepened because of the situation that has emerged.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. As you rightly flagged the issue, there is concern on both sides of the sort of fence about some recent statements regarding OPTs, about H1Bs, and it's a matter of comfort, I think, for both sides that it's the business leaders on both sides who are pointing out the advantages that both economies get out of this regime. Yes, of course, things can continue to be improved. Both countries can have a conversation around that, but everybody's looking forward to a good movement forward on this essential aspect. Because, as you said, this establishes that basis of relationship, right at the education level, at the initial employment level, which is so important for taking this strategic partner forward at the investment level, and finally even at the people level. I mean, that's where everything happens. But let me come back to Mr. Goenka, and let me ask you a question, sort of from the other side. As a past president of ASSOCHAM, the organization has done more than a century now, well established, very diverse set of corporate leaders as part of your team. And you've been involved in the government in designing various reform programs. What do you think the government needs to do in India in order to attract more investment into the US? I mean, yes, we are talking of the other side too, but what do you think needs to be done more, needs to be stabilized more to attract investments into India, especially when we look at the US and the specific sectors that Ambassador Sandhu has just mentioned?
So, very good question, Devinder. I think, first of all, I think we all know that India and US is the largest trade partners. And as I said earlier, the relationship between the two countries is very, very cordial. And it has improved a lot further in last 4 to 5 years. We've seen with the, from all the fronts, whether it is defense, whether it is trade, whether it is any personal, all different, and overall trade between the two countries are growing at a rate of almost like 10-12%, and as I said, it's a potential to grow at much higher rate. And post-COVID, I'm very let's say confident that this can easily go to 15 to 20%. When we are talking about industry, industries always want to have a level playing field. In certain cases, US and India is having very, very good level playing field. But here I just want to take this opportunity and raise certain connected issue what industry is also facing for the ambassador here. Specifically when we talk of steel or aluminum, which are the large industry. And India is also one of the largest producer of steel in the world, third largest producer. So it's a very important that we want to have a level playing field. When we see the CVDs or the countervailing duties or anti-dumping duties on the steel or steel related product, the industry is facing a big challenge. It is basically a huge the difference between the India and the other countries when the duties, anti-dumping duties are coming. USA has imposed duties over 200 to 500%. I mean, I want to repeat this. This is a very big, thing. it is ranging from 200 to 500% on steel and steel related product when we're exporting from India to US. And at the same time, like pipe, which is steel pipe, which we used to export earlier, is having 500% plus duty, anti-dumping duty, unheard, which is not normal duties. And when we are comparing with the same duty structure, the same product, what US has levied on other countries like Turkey or like Japan or Korea, they are all in the range of 5 to 10%, which is understandable. I mean, but Indian products they are attracting as high as 500%. I think this is completely unheard. And if I can take this liberty and say it's unreasonable. Same time when we try and represent the same issues, the every company can't afford the exorbitant legal fees there, and it's a long down process in US, which is making the presentation also very, very unviable. And though we have taken up the issues with the concerned ministry in India, and on this platform, I also like to request our embassy to take up the issues which can help a large industry. It is not a small industry in the country. It can be somehow can be addressed. Apart from this, India has come a long time. If you see in the last 10 years, India is known for its pharma. As the ambassador also said, if you see about agriculture, India is the largest producer of today the cotton. If you talk about milk, we are the largest producer of milk and milk related product. When we talk about automobile, today India is becoming the hub. So if you see all together, all these things, whether it is auto, engineering, pharma, agriculture, which can play a larger role in overall. And I can say that strategic partnership between India and United States are basically based on a democratic political strength, and it is in the interest of both the countries, to be part of growth stories.
Well, thank you so much for Mr. I think again. I saw the ambassador taking note of some of these things, and I think there will be a lot of economic and social wings working on the inputs that you're so cogently giving as the head of a industry chamber. To come back to you, Excellency, I want to share with the audience that you headed the political section here. You were our permanent representative at the UN for a number of years. Then you came back and you were deputy chief of mission when Minister Jaishankar was the ambassador here. And now you are heading the India setup here as our ambassador. And I would like to share with the audience that most of the principles who matter on both sides of the electoral fence are on first name terms with Ambassador Sandhu. So having this extensive experience within the United States, and considering your earlier tenures here, what is your personal feeling? One, how are you feeling about this? And then how do you see the whole scenario going ahead?
Devinder, precisely as you said, I have had an opportunity over the years, going back to 97. And I can certainly mention that in each tenure, there is never a dull moment in this relationship. One can use that term. But as Goenkaji just said a little while back, with the advantage of seeing it over this period, you can appreciate the relationship to where it has come. Back in 97, one could never have even thought that we will reach here. So today, it's a much more robust relationship. It's a much more deeper partnership. And you can have your differences. And certainly, look, if it's a robust relationship, there will be viewpoints, there will be differences. But I think where the democratic ethos plays an important role is that you can actually sit across and exchange your viewpoints. And there will be an opportunity where you can level up. And that I've seen over the years, particularly here. And I think between United States and India, whenever we sit across or whenever I speak to their policymakers, especially on the Hill, the senators and congressmen, there is certainly an approach which is very similar, and that is the democratic ethos of being able to sit across and talk out our viewpoints.
That is a remarkable observation, Excellency, because these are the two largest democracies, one economically large, other moving up the ladder, but most populous. And I think between the two largest democracies, a large chunk of mankind and a large chunk of GDP, and a wonderful relationship which is strategic and going forward on that. We almost into 50 minutes. With your permission, I would like to flag some questions from the audience. I have a question here which talks which is mentioning that Dr. V.K. Pandey, clearly globalization helps everything. But when we look at agriculture, for example, and the farming sector in India, how can we ensure that we take the best out of the bilateral and global relationships, but at the same time that work in the sort of the interest of the Indian farmer also? So that's the concern that's being raised, and your views around that.
So agriculture, as you know, in our recent reform, it's one of the very key priority areas. And in the United States too, that has been noticed, the effort to create a single market. And I think on both sides, it's, as you have said, it's a give and take. On both sides, there needs to be access to be able to, that is for our farmers also, to be able to sell to the United States. And this formation and the investment which we are making in creation of infrastructure in the agriculture sector so as to create one whole market. And you are aware that this has been a demand of the farming community for many years going back. So this is a, if I may be permitted to say, that this is quite a revolutionary step, and that has been very much noticed here. So hopefully in agriculture, such steps will enable both sides to come to many of the understandings which we are looking at, including in one of the smaller trade deals which is being talked about.
So the next question that I see regarding the global value chains that are under some shift. And so Gyanendra Sharma is requesting your views on how we can ensure that the global value chains, as they move from the earlier established areas, what can we do to make sure that a large part of them moves to India?
I don't know if Mr. Goenka is going to add in that, because a lot that is, but I will mention one part that yes, and I don't want to exactly, there is a lot of talk and discussion in the United States about the state of the supply chain. And I don't need to go into more detail why that has generated, but there is a huge, and that's why in all this challenge comes the big opportunity. And I mentioned to you the fact that we lived up to be a stable and reliable supplier in many of the pharmaceutical products and APIs has gone very well here. I don't know how much it is realized in India, but here, not only in the leadership, you have seen the statements of the public statements of the leadership, but also with people at large. And I talk to congressmen and senators, many times they mention that. So that has given an opening. Certainly, they are looking at India, but I should also be frank enough to say there is competition. There are other countries also which are looking and which are offering. So the fact that the Prime Minister has taken note of that and given directions clearly to the ministries, there are some aspects which we need to do the homework so that when the international capital looks at India, it finds reliability and it finds attractiveness to coming there. But certainly, it's a great opportunity, and this time around, we should not miss it.
Thank you, sir. And there are a number of questions, but about the STEM regime and the OPT and H1B. I'm only mentioning that so that the audience is aware. You already mentioned that, and you're representing the causes of industry on both sides to make everybody realize that this is a win-win
Devendra, I
situation
just want to add
in the
here,
interest of everybody. Yes, Mr. Goenka.
I'll respond back.
On the global supply chain, the question was very, very good, very, very apt. The issue here is also depend on the, the policies. I think the government of India is trying to do a lot of things. I mean, they're taking various steps, but I think it's the state government which has to play an important role, to rationalize whether we talk of land acquisitions or we talk of labor regulation. I mean, potentially such policy is very, very important, which can ease the whole investment cycle, and which can ultimately play an important role in value chain across. So it's a very important. I can give an example of the logistic cost in India. Is very, very Indian high logistic costs creating a lot of incompetitiveness. Currently the cost of logistic is around 13 to 14% of the GDP, which government is trying through its national logistic policy to bring it down to 10 to 12%. That is very important, that providing an efficient logistic network is very, very key to attract the manufacturing across across value chain, and then only it's possible to bring the whole value chain across. Otherwise, it's coming in pieces and bits. That's my point of view.
Therefore, people like you are an important part of that, who give the feedback, and it's work in progress, but all of us are trying to give that feedback to the government.
So we are
Yes, sir,
almost
and that's
at,
what as a SOCHAM, as a important industry chamber, we are trying to take up at various level. And as Deepak also said in the starting, the government is doing a lot of good things, but a lot to be done. And as a chamber, we have to take the voice and become the bridge between the industry and the government at various level. So that's why I just a little bit of my views here.
they're very welcome views, of course, and I think very pertinent and very relevant. And let me go back to Deepak. Deepak, if you could just say your closing remarks, and also perhaps an opportunity to say how ASSOCHAM can facilitate this entire process of the trade and investment relationship as a major industry chamber in India.
So I think the conversations have been really, really very, very interesting. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, Mr. Goenka. Thank you to you as well. I think the chamber plays a very, very crucial and important role because we understand it on the ground. And ASSOCHAM, like I said, is 4.5 lakh members, out of which 80% or 85% are MSMEs. So they are the pulse on the ground. So they are the good ones, they're also the bad ones, they're also the impacted ones. So therefore, the nuances that come out from all this after you synthesize the information, I think is what we have presented to the government. And I'm very proud to say ASSOCHAM has been a knowledge chamber, not an events chamber. And we have represented to the government a lot of things which have been accepted. And we are taken as the voice of industry. And therefore, our success rate has been very, very nice. And that's something that we will continue to do. I think we will conduct a lot of webinars, virtual exhibitions. We'll create a lot of platforms where interactions take place, these market access and B2Bs and these relationship making, which one is talking about, is happening because, you will have to look at this world with a completely new lens. Anything that was pre-COVID may not be true in the post-COVID. It may work, I don't know. But will it have a longevity? I certainly don't think so. So I'm still learning. I don't know what the new normal is going to be, but is definitely not what the past was. So that's one thing which I would like to say. There's a lot of pent-up demand in the system, which is resulting into a lot of purchase across markets, and therefore that's something that one has to be letting it pass as well, because it's the few months down the line is when we will start seeing the demand is actually the way we anticipate it is coming up, or is it just these stimulus packages which are kind of driving it for the time, and that money makes into other areas of investments? I think you've talked about, Ambassador Sandhu has spoken about IT services, and I'm very, very proud as an Indian that, there was a lot of places in the world which failed to provide the uptime. India did not fail even at a single point. And therefore, the feather in the cap of this country is that we stood by the people at the most difficult time. And I think that will go in a very, very long way in building that confidence. Fear और जो डर होता है और जो एक दिल में होती है कि हाँ जी, I have achieved it. I think that's what we have. We have touched them at another level altogether. And I'm not talking just US here, I'm talking about many other countries as well. So we definitely will benefit because of our ability and our ability to prove that to the world that we have done it. So I think that's where it is. The new norm is going to be that most of us are not going back 100% to offices, government offices, MESA, but the way the industry looks like, you may maybe a couple of times in a week. And as we move along, there are a lot of changes that has happened. We would have never changed in 5 years what we changed in 90 days. There are a lot of acceptances that have come. So the new normal is completely a different normal. And therefore, my belief is, and like Mr. Goenka also spoke about, this $300 billion trade number that one is talking about, it's historical number. It's clearly possible that if we have our game sorted out properly, we will see this growth coming. So business, trade, investment, jobs, people to people connect is definitely going to look northwards. There are a lot of synergies that we need to look at, and how do we benefit from all this? Definitely, sir. I think under your leadership and under your guidance at the embassy at the US, I think we will tread, and we will have to work to ensure this opportunity is converted into results and just not left at the opportunity part of it. I think there are 3 more points that you people said in different ways, but I will try to synthesize. I think the domestic manufacturers will have to up their ante. You will have to get into value-added products so that the global supply chain, what Mr. Goenka also said, will respect you and accept you. And you will also learn how to produce not only the niche products, but also the scale products with the right quality, the right price at the right time supplied. I think localization of the supply chain is important for this country, and this is so that we are able to produce components. No industry can ever succeed if you don't have components. What did we do right in IT? What did we do right in auto? Mr. Goenka took the right examples. I think it was the component industry that developed the main industry, not the main industry developing the component industry. So it's very easy for us to import. So I think Atmanirbhar Bharat is all about creating that competence within the country, and therefore that's what it is. I think this is the 2 points that I take from the industry, and there's 1 point that I say the government needs to do is, it's extremely important to have consistency in policy. And there are a lot of members of mine who come and talk to me about this, and therefore I'm not going to say more than this, but consistency of policy and investment into string infrastructure. And Goenka ji has already said this also, as well as cost-effective logistics is the way forward. If we have to be Atmanirbhar, we have to be competitive. If you have to be competitive, you have to produce the top quality at the right price for Indians to consume within India. If that is achieved, I think the globe is ready to consume our products as well, because they will be globally productive, they will be globally competitive. So thank you, Your Excellency. With these words, I'm really, really grateful that you did join us this morning and evening in India over here. Thank you so much. I think I will, whatever input you have given, ASSOCHAM takes it very seriously. We will represent, we will work with our members, with the government. I think states is where the work is, states where the action is. We need to ground investments. We need to bring states to the states to look at opportunities for investment and make these partnerships happen. I think I would like to thank everybody under you, sir, in DC. They are the ones who help us bring you together, this whole webinar. I think I would like to thank Devender, Primus, Wellspun team, and my team, personal team, and ASSOCHAM, who is working behind the scenes to create all these things. So thanks to all of you, thanks to the sponsors, and thanks to the delegates and the industry partners who are here. Thank you so much. So we overstepped our time, but it's a delight to have you, sir. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you, Excellency. It's a pleasure to connect with you again, and we look forward to all the support that we expect, and more than equipped to provide that to Indian industry as it goes forward. Thank you so much, Mr. Goenka. It's wonderful. And thank you to the audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Devender. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. All the best and stay well.
Thank you, sir. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.